Today, I'm not going to talk about salary and Redis. The today's demonstration is purely going to be focused on Vue. How do you set up Vue from a Flask application is what I'm planning to cover. All right, so the recording has now been initiated too. So I would quickly start sharing my screen and we'll start a project. Kaushik, yes, it's a regular project support session. There is a separate calendar link that is created for the project sessions. I have shared that calendar link a couple of times on the discourse. Maybe you can do some exploring there and you will be able to get that calendar link. Else, I'll share it at the end of the session. Or meanwhile, if anyone has that
Sure, sir.
calendar link handy, they can probably share it right now. Just a minute, let me get. I have shared this calendar link in the chat here, so you can add this calendar in your account as well, so that you can get updates about the sessions related to the projects. All right, then. I hope all's good. So let us get started. I am hoping that my screen is now visible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'll be using this VS Code IDE for this demonstration. You can use whatever ID that you want to use for developing your project. So as I said, we are going to start with a trivial enough Flask application. So what I would do is I would create a Flask application. So the minimum number of files and folders that are required for a Flask application to be here, I would just quickly create them. My first file is going to be app.py. I'll create a folder named templates, and I'll create a folder named static. In app.py, I'll write the template code or the boilerplate code for initiating a Flask application. It should be running something from here. So for that, let me do one thing. Let me create a file index.html here inside my templates folder. Then this is something that I can return from the home page, right? For now, I can just say so. Yeah, that is okay. There is nothing in the static folder as of now. I'll leave that empty. And there is just one template that I have in the templates folder. And uh, this is the message that it shows. Let me see if this Flask application is working. Yep. So I'll go there and check. Yeah, here is it. So that means my application is working fine. I'll just close this. So now the question is that how do we start incorporating view templates here in this, simple enough looking application? So the starting point of adding view templates is going to be your index.html page. There is nothing that you have to do in the Python programming as such, as view is of course related to the front end. So whatever changes or modifications are to be done, they have to be done uh, in other files where there is no Python code at all. Okay. So for that, what I would do is I would have to first include the CDNs for view, as this demonstration is going to be based on the view CDN. I'm not going to use view CLI setup as of now. So I would quickly get those view CDNs. Okay, let's take this one. And I can also get the Bootstrap CDN in case we want to use some of its templates. All right, so this is good enough for me. I would rather keep this text as it is as of now. And what I would do is I would start by creating a div tag here. Or let me remove this text too. And inside this div tag, I'm going to write some code. This can be simple enough. Let's say this is the home page of my new app. That's it. Here I can probably provide the link of the script or the reference to the script that I am going to use, or where I'm going to put all of my view related code, source code. So I would just create a script tag as of now. I would add the reference later. And in order to create a view instance, as you all know, we will have to bind it with an HTML element. So I'm just assigning an ID to this div. Say it's going to be app. You can assign any other name of your own choice. I would just keep it simple and give it app. Now I am going to put all of my JS related files inside my static folder. As you all know, that Flask application serves all of the static assets from the folder named static by default. If you want to change this folder name, you can definitely do that while creating the Flask instance. But by default, it is going to take static as the default folder name. And the assets can be accessed using the /static endpoint too. So whatever images or whatever static assets or any text files that your application may consist of, you can put all of those things here in the static folder. So in order to structure my app, instead what I would do is inside static folder I would create a folder named JS. You can even name it JavaScript or Vue, whatever it is. And inside this JS folder, I am going to create a file named app.js. Now in this file app.js, I would create a view object. So a view object will basically consist of these many parameters. One is going to be the element, which we'll assign it as app. The thing it can have is data, and it can have methods, and it can have computed and watchers and things that you can have. Right now, I'll keep it simple. So I'll just create these many things, or maybe I can assign it to an object here too, or a variable here. And in the data, let me just put one thing, say message is going to be that's it. Uh, okay, fine. So I'll go there. Yeah. So I have come here. So what I would do here is instead of uh, okay, right after this message, what I would do is I would include another mosaic expression that is going to display the value from the message variable that we have created inside a view object. Now, since that we have already created a app.js file, I would like to reference that file here. So can someone tell me if I want to reference something from the static folder, say in my index.html file, that is of course in a separate folder named templates, and I want to reference something in the static folder. So can someone tell me how can I reference it here?
Dot slash
Dot slash, okay.
Static slash JS.
Okay, this is how you would do, probably in Windows-based operating system, where you are going by the file structure. Let's say I change the structure, I put templates folder in some, at some other place, and my static folder is at some other place. How can I write this path here so that the application does not even break even when the paths are changed?
URL for method.
Yeah, I can use URL for method. So, okay, let's do that. Fine. So in URL for, the very first argument that we'll provide here is going to be the, for now, I would say folder name. What is going to be the second parameter?
File name.
So we'll provide file name here. And the file name is going to be, what is going to be the file name here? If I want to reference app.js, okay?
Should be JS slash.
Correct. So it should be JS / app.js. If I would be having, many other nested folders here, I would have to, give the exact path here, else it won't work. Fine. So what I have done is I have added this script tag here. So it is going to refer to this app.js file. In app.js file, I have already created a view instance, which is binded to an element having ID app that I have created inside my index.html file. And it has one default message, and one message is coming from view that I have defined here. So let us see if this thing is working or not. I would just refresh it, and it is saying this is the home page of my view app, and after that it does not say anything about message here. So let me see what the problem is. Okay, so div ID app message is here, static. I hope I have saved everything. Yes, I have. This message should come there. Says hello world. Is it coming there or not? It's not coming here.
Sir, the JS folder should be inside the static folder, right?
Yeah, it is.
Alright, sorry.
So app.js is put inside JS folder, which is inside folder named static. So it should work. Let me see what is the issue. See. So it is giving the correct path here. Yes, this thing is fine too. It has something to do with the view, I guess. So let me take this. I don't think so. That is required here. Let me quickly create a view component, and after that I'll see if that is working. So the view component can be, say, about. Here the template property. Okay, I have created this template here. I'll go there and it's out. So this is coming here. I don't know why isn't that coming. So this is message and oh, okay. So I have understood the reason. Can anyone tell me why isn't that coming here? Why the messages and this text is not getting populated based on the values that we have here in the view instance? Well, the reason is that since we are using a Flask application and this notation, that is this double curly braces, is also used by Jinja. And this entire page is going to be first rendered on the server side. So all of these placeholders are basically, are getting rendered on the server side itself. And since there is no meaning of these placeholder values, message and text, that's why when the front end or the browser receives this page, there is nothing for the view, to do here. So there are basically two things that we can do. One is we can put these placeholders in the raw block. The other thing we can do is we can change the delimiter of the view. So, for example, we would change the delimiter here. I would keep it something like this, and here I would change it. I have created it like you create template strings in JavaScript. This is how I have kept the syntax here.
I think the spelling of delimiters is wrong. It's DLIMITERs. Delimiters.
Sorry?
Yeah, I think the spelling of delimiters
Sir, it's
has to be
MI.
Okay, it's
As the-
MI.
MIT.
Is there a S at the end?
I think there is, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is there. All right, so now we are able to see those values getting populated once we have changed the view delimiters. Right. So, well, this is quite simple stuff. I hope all of you would have done this, any time before. But today, the purpose of this session is basically, to let you know how you can structure your application. Right, just like you would do in your actual application development 2 project, and also how are you going to make it an SPA, that is a single page application. So for that, you will also require the use of view routers here. So the next thing that I am going to incorporate here in this app is to introduce view routers. I hope Narendra has already taken a session on view routers, and all of you are aware of what a view router is. So we are going to use this view router in our course so that we can make our applications SPA. SPA, I hope you all understand what a single page application is. In a single page application, the entire control is given to JavaScript, and whenever a user tries to navigate from one page to another, the server basically plays a very little role there. The server only acts as a, right, I would say key. It is used for the API purpose alone. That means we'll only send the request to the server whenever we require some data, and all of the rendering and population work will be done via JavaScript in the front end itself. So we'll only talk to backend whenever it is required, else everything else would be taken care of by JavaScript. And if there is some static data that has to be populated, for that you don't even require the backend to be running. I would probably show you sometime later that once I convert this application into an SPA and I don't have any data being retrieved from the backend, I would close the server and I would still be able to run the single page application that would have been loaded by that time. That I would show you once I convert it completely to a SPA. Okay, so for that, what I would do is I would remove all of this. So since I need to introduce view router, I will need view router CDN separately. I have just added it for view. Now I'll need for view router too. Okay, I think I can take this directly. View router is done. Now what I would do is I would go to my app.js file, and here I would create an object for my view router. So what I would do here is so the application is going to make use of router. So I would do. Now this router has to be defined here. So we'll create a router here. I hope I'm not making any typo here. Router only. And this view router constructor will require routes. I would provide it routes, or I'll just keep it. That's it. Now I'll need to define my routes as well. So routes is going to be an array, and in this array, I am going to define what all paths my view router or my SPA is going to have. So how do we define those paths here? We'll be creating a list or an array of objects. Here I will have to define my path and the component that will be binded with that particular path. That means whenever a user will try to navigate to the path that we'll define here, the component that is binded with the same object or in this object will be rendered in front of the user. These are the things that we'll define. Okay, let's say the first path that we are going to have is going to be the slash itself. The other one that we can have is say I already have a about page here, so I'll create one about. And the other path I can have is say contact us.
Sir, can we add a dynamic route?
I did not get it. Sorry.
Like a dynamic route. Let's say some IDs pass through the route.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Let's say this is going to be, let's say, course and some ID. I'll define what happens to this later. So since we have these many components, or sorry, these many paths, we'll need one component for each of these paths as well. For about, I have already created one. I would just modify it a little bit. Maybe I'll just add a heading here. Say out us about page, or I can even add any lorem ipsum text that I can generate. Probably let me generate one. I can generate 50 characters. I'll copy this, and similarly, I am going to create the components. So this I have named about. One is going to be the slash, so other one can be home itself. Right, and what else we have? We have contact us. So us, and we have course. I would assign these to an object too. So here I'll name it as say about. We'll try to use camel case or Pascal case here while creating variables. This is going to be us. I'll just change the heading for all of these. So this is about us. This is my page. Us, and this is a our contact details, everything else, and in the course, keep it course. Here I would say this is the course page. since I'm going to pass some ID to it, so for that ID, I can do is I can say for it's
Here we can use the double curly bracket. We don't have to use the $sign curly bracket.
sorry, I did not get it.
Earlier we had changed the delimiter, right?
Okay, we have changed it. Okay, we have changed it here itself. Yeah, right. Okay, we'll have to do. Or let me do one thing. Let me remove it since we are going to convert it into an SPA. I would change it to the one that it was. We'll use it as it is. I am using this dot route variable here in case you want to provide these parameters as props. You can do that too. For that, you will just have to pass another parameter here, say props. Pass through to that. I would not do it right now. I'm just explaining you how would you do that. And inside course, you would create another variable here that is going to tell you about what all props this component is getting, and one of those props is going to be ID. Now you can use this ID as state or as a data variable anywhere. You don't have to use this dot this dollar route. You can simply use this dot ID. That is fine.
So what does that props equal to true signify?
Sorry.
The props equal to true. What does it mean? What does it?
It means
tell
that
the system?
it means the dynamic parameters that this path has. The value of these dynamic parameters is going to be provided to the component with the help of props or via props. Previously, we were using this dot route, this notation, in order to access any dynamic parameter that comes with the URL. But once you provide it as the props, then you don't have to use this long syntax here. Instead, what you would do is you will simply write this dot ID.
Got it.
Fine. So I would name here, say, this is going to be home. It's going to be out. Contacts. And this is going to be posts, I guess. Posts. Fine. We have done everything here. I'll come back to index.html. I have it ready here. So what I can do here is, firstly, I'll have to create a navigation bar so that I can list all of these paths that I have created here inside the navigation bar so that the user finds it easy to navigate from one page to another. So for that, I would try to look if I can get a simple enough navigation bar from the Bootstrap.
Sir,
Yeah.
is it necessary to give the routes through view?
I did not get it. I lost your voice for a couple of seconds. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, is it necessary to give the routes through view only? Can we do it through app.py also, right? Through the app.route thing. Is it okay if we do it like that, or we have to do it through view only?
See, right now I'm trying to convert this application into an SPA. So if you want to make an SPA, it is must for you to use view
Okay.
routers in it. But if you are even
Okay.
okay that your application does not satisfy to be an SPA, then that approach is fine too. But as long as all of the rendering is happening via view, so that means when you are rendering these templates from your backend, like you see, I have not passed any parameter to this index.html file. If I'll do so, then
Yeah.
that would be treated as Jinja rendering, right, or the server-side rendering. So even if you
Okay.
are passing all of these templates, that means if the user is trying to click on a link and the request is going to be the backend and backend is passing that page to the front end, you have to make sure that no rendering is happening on the backend end. So for that, you will have to either change the delimiters of all of your placeholders, or you will have to put your relevant expressions in the raw block. Both are fine. I'm
Okay.
fine with both the approaches. But this demonstration is going to be guiding you to create an SPA. Otherwise,
Okay,
that approach
sir.
is fine. That would be a most simpler one, I would say. What I was doing here. So
Putting in a router, I think view route.
sorry.
The view router tag, I think you were putting it in. The router view, sorry.
nav bar.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was looking for the nav bars. Maybe I can get this one. This looks simple enough. Right? Feature pricing disabled. Yeah, I would take this one. So I would remove this div, or let me do one thing. Take this class and I will put it here. So this div is closed, this nav is closed, this A is closed, button is closed. I don't even need this button. This div is closed and this div is closed. Fine. Background color, what I want is, probably we'll check it later. This is navbar. I would say it router app, say, and yeah, I'll keep it home. The other links that we have are one is about us, one is contact us, or I would first have course. Last one is going to be. All of these are basically anchor tags. So this href attribute value. And inside this, what I will do is I will create router link. Here, and to router link, we are going to provide a prop to, which is going to tell us what path this text should navigate the user to. So I would say this is going to be hash for home. This is going to be for about us. I hope that is about us. About. This is for course. We have to provide a dynamic parameter here, so I can directly provide 3 or 4 or anything. Otherwise, we can also use the object notation where we say what the name of the route is and what the params this route is going to accept. That can be done too. I'll keep it simple and I'll say course 3. Fine. And here I would say contact us. Yeah, let's keep it contact us. Course. Right, so we have all of these things. I'll keep this hash as it is here. I'll not change it. If I want, I can also have a router link here that is going to redirect me to the home endpoint of the application. Both of those are fine. Let me see how this page is looking. After that, we'll see if there is any other modification to be done. Let me see if there is any error. No error. So if this is looking good, I don't want it to be spread. I'll remove this tool class. Okay, so, oh, sorry. So I have used React notation here. Sorry, apologies. Yeah, so this has come in the mid. Apart from that, change the background color. So from it to say warning. If that is looking okay, maybe we can proceed. Else, let me try one more color. Primary. Okay. I'll add the dark theme. All right, I'll keep it the same. That is what that looks good. Okay. Yeah, fine. I'm okay with it. So you're able to see that when I'm hovering over these links, I'm able to see those paths. This is my slash, this is my about, this is my course 3, and this is my contact us. But if I click on these, nothing is going to happen. Can someone tell me? You can see that these are changing. That means the paths here on the browser URL bar, these are changing, but my content is not getting rendered here. Does anyone know what is the reason?
Router view is not included.
Yes, the router view is not here. So where shall we have that router view? Should we have it inside our components?
No, it should be in index.html, right?
No, on the
Correct. It should be here.
index.
So here I can have I'm just adding these classes so that the page is organized when it comes up on the screen, right? Otherwise, no need to mandatorily add these classes. Router view. So yeah, now if I'll reload this app, I should be able to see. So you are able to see that I'm on the contact us page, and this is what the contact us page looks like. If I go to home, this is what the home page looks like. This is about, this is course. So this is saying this is the course page for 3 because the ID provided here is 3. If I change this ID to something else, say 5, then this will be changed to 5. But if I'll click on this course link specifically, then this is going to redirect me to course 3 page since I have hard coded the value of that dynamic parameter to be 3. Fine. So you're able to see that this is a simple enough single page application that we have created here, right? Whatever you are clicking here, everything is happening on the front end. There is no role of backend as such once this application is loaded. I'll show you once again as well. So see, I have reloaded this application. Now, if I even close my server from here, from the backend, I have closed my server. But still, if I want to see the pages, I am able to see all of those. Why? Because all of these pages have static content. There is nothing that is coming from the backend. So once the index page is loaded, I don't need the backend server to be running all the time. Right. So the major problem that I see a major of the learners come across even while implementing this basic structure is you see that I have put everything, each component of my application in this single file that is app.js. And that is something, no one wants to do in case the Viva examiner asks you to make one change here and there, then you will just be scrolling up and scrolling down to find out where the change has to be made exactly, right? Or even for your own understanding, in order to separate that concerned functionalities from one folder to another. This is how you would want to structure your application. So let me try to do the same here. What I would do is I just have this app.js here. I would create another one. The file that I'm creating here is inside static folder, JS folder. So say this can be my router file, router.js. And the content that I'll write inside my router is going to be router specific. So I'll just keep this.
So just a quick question. That's okay. So this router view, right? What's the principle behind where we have to put the router view?
Wherever you want your content to be rendered.
So for example, I could have a router link in the home page, which will take me to a router view in a component and vice versa.
Yeah, of course. See,
okay.
Right now what I have done here is I have just, this static content here. If I want, I can even add a router view tag here. But the thing that matters is, do I have anything to be rendered beyond this? Why do I need a router view tag here? I would need that if this component or if this path has child components. For example, where did I create that? Okay, here. So right now, let's say this is course/id. The notation that we have used here is course/3. This is what we have used as the static example. Now, even after that, let's say we have some other component in the URL as part of the URL. After course/id, I have /say term as well, right? And now what I want to do is I want to define what is going to happen if that term is also provided. That will be taken care of by the children component. So what I can do here is I can also define my children. I hope this is child or something, or children, I guess. I don't remember the exact name. Yeah. And here I can define that what all child paths this particular path is going to have. For now, it is course ID. Now what I can do is I can define, let's say, after that, probably I can have some parameter that look like course ID and term ID. I'm just giving an example. For this path alone, that is for course and ID, then this component will be rendered, that is, say this one. And if you have some children routes set up there for that particular path too, and there is some path that the user is trying to navigate to that matches with one of those children paths, then it makes sense to put a router view tag here, so that whatever content that comes from the children paths, that will be rendered inside this component. Right. So this router view is just going to tell you about the top level components that are directly binded with these paths. But if there are any children components, then you will have to specifically add the router view tag in all of the components that support these children tags. Right? Otherwise, the children tag or the children component won't be rendered. I hope you got the point.
Yes, got it. So for general navigation, we can't use these routers. So when I say general navigation, it's not really like your URL form, or it's not really like your, you just generally redirect from one place to another. It's not that. It's actually more than that. It's redirection along with a bunch of data that goes with it. That's how we have to understand the router. So I mean, I'm just kind of thinking that if you want to just route it from one component to another component, for example, I click a link in one component and it takes me to another component. And that component, in that component, you need to render something. In that case, whether this router view also will work in that kind of a, just trying to think of an example. Like, I mean, you just have, let's say from about you have some content, and let's say you have a link in about.
Okay.
Right. And you click on that about page, you click on that link on the about page, and that kind of goes into the contact page and it displays something.
Okay.
Will a router be used for such a scenario? Is my question clear?
Yeah.
You have your about page.
See, if the content is static, like I have in this particular application, then I would even do it from the backend, right? I don't need to include view routers here. This is going to be overkill.
Correct.
But if you have a lot of dynamic data that is being fetched from the backend at the real time, then it is a good idea to have routers there.
Right. So even in this scenario that I'm explaining, where I say I have a click in the about page, that takes me to the contact page where it has to render some dynamic content. I could have a router for that also.
Definitely, yes.
Right. Okay.
The major advantage that we get, for using Vue router is that our application becomes an SPA. Right. So for that,
right. So you don't go to the server and come back. That's what
exactly. You only visit the server whenever it is absolutely required. All the static content is always there in the very first request to the backend server. Right. So when I am making the first request to this /endpoint, I'm able to get all of the JavaScript, or since I have just one HTML page here, I have no more HTML pages. That means on the very first request, I'm able to get all of the JS files or all of the JavaScript that I have written for this particular application in the very first request. Now, afterwards, that JavaScript code that is being downloaded, that is going to take care of everything else. How the user is going to interact with the application, that will be taken care of by the JavaScript that was loaded in the first request.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I have routes here. Fine. I think router specific things are only these two objects, and the remaining things are components. So what I would do instead with the components is, okay, let me create a folder named components. And inside this components, I'll start creating the files. One file for each component. So say one is going to be home.js. Other one is going to be out.js. Then we have contact.js. And we have post.js. I'll take each of these components one by one and we'll put it at their correct place. To course, I'll put it here. This is contact us. I'll put it here. This is home. I'll put it here. And the last one remaining is about. So this is all done. Now let us see what all dependencies do we have. So for example, I'm making use of router here. So this router is coming from where? This router is coming from this router.js. Yeah, here. So what I would do here is say import. For importing it, I'll have to export it. So what I would do here is I would say export default. That means if there is only one thing to export here, I would instead to use default keyword, else I could have used the standard notation too. So see, it automatically wrote this code for me, but here I want to make it router.js. App.js and my router.js, they look okay. No. So in router.js, you see that we are using these home, about, contact us, etc., whatever components that we have in the application. Now it's turn to import all of these components one by one into this router.js file. So for that, we will have to first export default home. Similarly, this is going to be export out. This is going to be contact us. Now you have exported all of these objects. It's time to import all of these in my router file. So the first thing that I would be importing is say home. And where I have imported it from? I have imported it from the components folder. So see, whenever we use import statement in JavaScript, it is mandatory to use this, Unix type styling in order to reference your file structure. If you don't use this dot, it is going to be a problem. Okay, so always use this dot and / notation whenever you're importing something in JavaScript. So this is coming from home.js. And we have about. And we have contact us. So you see that it is already writing that boilerplate code for me. Import course. It's a home about contact us course. Everything is imported in this router, and this router is then exported to this app.js file. We are importing it here. Fine. Looks like the application is complete now. Let me see. Okay, the server is not running. Started it. It came here, but we are not able to see any content. It's okay. Let us see. So it says cannot import statement outside a module. So we'll go to index.html and we'll add type equals to module while importing our app.js file. That this error should go away. Yes, it went away. So now you see that our application will still work the same the way it was working before. Right. I'll close the server. Still, I will be able to navigate between these pages since everything is being run on the front end itself. Right. There is no need of the back. Right. There was one query that I got over email, I guess a couple of days back, is that if I'm using a setup like this, well, I was not sure what was the exact setup that he or she was trying to use that time. But the other thing is, right now, what I have done is, if you come to my index.html file, that is the only HTML template that is being served from the backend. You see that I'm having these values hard-coded. See, this is home, this is about us, this is course, right, and this is contact us. Let's say I have a need where I need to change the links on the navigation bar based on the state of the user. For example, if the application requires the user to be logged in, what I want to show to the user in the navigation bar, if the user has not logged in, is, let's say one is login, the other one is going to be only about us. The rest two links I don't want to show to the user if the user is not logged in. How do I achieve that? So can someone tell me how do I, even dynamically change the links on my navigation menu? Any ideas? Anyone? Okay, so here we can use some view constructs. The view construct that I can think of right now is vif, velsif, and vshow. That is what I'm going to use here. So what I would do is I would go to my app.js, and let's say I will create one more variable, for example, flag, right? And I'll initialize this flag value with true, right? Now I'll go to my index.html file. Now assume that this flag value is something that you are basically computing at the runtime or at real time based on the state whether user is logged in or not. So based on this flags value, I want to hide some of these navigation links from the user. So what I would do is, let's say I want to hide my course, this one. So I would add a vif here, and I would say vif equals to flag. That means whenever the value of this flag attribute will be true, then only this router link component will be rendered. Similarly, I want to do the same for, let's keep it simple, right? Let's do it only for course 3. Right now, the value of this is what I say. This is true. Okay. So I hope the application is running. No, it's not. If I run this application, there will be no change at all. Right? The value is true, so of course no change. I'm getting everything here, fine. But let us try to make a change here, and I'll make this value false. Now if I'll refresh this page, you will see that this course navigation link will go away. Went away, but looks like there is some problem. No, it is fine. Like you see, go away. It went away. And instead of that, what I want is, I was doing it on index.html. So I would copy this link. If the user is not logged in or whenever the value of this flag attribute is false, what I want is, instead of course, I would say ID equals to 3. I'm just giving you an example. Of course, it is not going to be the exactly same, but I'm just giving you an example. How do you change the navigation links in the menu dynamic? I'll make it 5. So if the value of flag is true, then the link that will be there on the navigation value will redirect the user to course ID 3. Otherwise, it is going to redirect the user to course ID 5. Right? Now I don't need this v if flag. Instead, I can simply use v else. Okay. So if I'll go there, I'll refresh this. I am not getting anything. Go to console. So it is giving me an error. It is saying v else used on element router link without corresponding v if. We have defined v if here, right? Oh, so the reason is that you see that this router link tag, this is basically wrapped inside this anchor tag. So we have to make sure that this router link tag is basically coming immediately after this previous router link tag. So for that, what I would do is put it here.
But you can have both router link within the same A tag, right? So only one of the conditions is going.
I can do that too. Yes, fine. I have just done it for these two tags. And of course, as you suggested, you can go that way too. So I'll refresh now. This error will go away. And you see that I'm getting course ID equals to 5. And if I'll change that value to false to true, then I'll start getting course ID equals to 3. Now, of course, how are you going to find out whether the value of this flag attribute is to be false or true? I hope this is quite easy for you. Here you can write something in your mounted hook. This mounted hook will get triggered as soon as this application is loaded. You can check if the user is authenticated here or not. If the user is not authenticated, you can set the appropriate value to flag, and then you can take care of those things here in the index.html. You can also categorize, or I would say you can also create customized menus for the user. For example, you say there is a set of navigation links that you want to display to the user when the user is logged in and when the user is not logged in. So what you would do there is, let's say you will create a div tag here, and you are going to have a number of router links here. And similarly, there's a set of navigation links that you want to display to the user when the user is not logged in. So here, instead, what you would do is, once you have categorized those, you can use v if and v else condition here. Right? You can say v if equals to flag. So if the user is logged in, then you are going to show these many links. If the user is not logged in, then you show these many links. This is something that you can do as well. Is there something else that I have missed? This. I think I have covered pretty much everything. So I hope you got a decent idea how do you create a Vue application out of a Flask application. This is the simplest thing that I can think of, apart from what one person suggested previously in this call, that is you send all of your HTML templates from the backend as it is, and then you populate those components or those HTML templates via Vue. But I would say this is a more decent approach in comparison to that. You are structuring all of your components, your router related things, everything in a modularized manner. So this is also going to be easier for you when you are appearing for the Viva and when the examiner asks you to explain certain things. And of course, easy for the examiner to understand your structure, your project structure too. Now, if I try to relate it with the application that you have to create in this term, so what you can do is you can create as many as components, put all of those components in this folder named components here. That has to be put inside JS folder. Of course, the folder name can be anything else, but make sure that you put whatever folder you create inside the static folder, unless you are not making modifications to the default settings of a Flask app. And you can keep your app.js and router.js in the root folder. Components is something that you can probably put at the same level with app.js and router.js, but your component should reside in some folder with meaningful name. Like I have chosen components here. Probably you can choose views here as well, right? Just like you structure your application while creating a Vue CLI project, the similar thing can be achieved here too. The only thing that is difficult here, or that is probably not achievable here, is basically scope-based styling. Vue CLI allows you that, but in this case, you won't be able to achieve scope-based styling. But you can, of course, incorporate or find a workaround over that by assigning different IDs and classes to your elements. That is not a big issue. Apart from that, the Flask application template that I took for this demonstration was quite simple. You see that I have just app.js file, templates file, and this static folder. You can modify this structure as well, and you can take any Flask application structure that you might have come across even in your MAD1 course, if that suits you or you find that better. This was just a simple demonstration. I have just shown you that how do you incorporate your Vue related things inside a Flask application in case you are not interested in using Vue CLI, right? And that's what I am assuming for what's the case for most of the learners, because you are probably doing this course or learning these technologies for the first time, and creating your project with the help of Vue CLI that is not covered in vast details in the course will be a difficult job for many of you. There is another folder structure that I can recommend you, I believe from week 8 or week 7, I guess, one of these from AppDev 2 course itself. And if you want to take that structure from Application Development 1 course, I guess week 6 or week 5, one of those screencasts has a tutorial about how do you structure your Flask application. You can probably refer to that. But yeah, since you are creating the project for AppDev 2 course, I would suggest you to use one of the structures that are given in the screencast for AppDev 2 course, because later on you will be required to incorporate Celery, Redis, those things, etc. Server-sent events too, if required. Then it will be easier for you to incorporate those things. Otherwise, in the MAD1 project structure, you will have to manually add those things, whereas in the AppDev 2 folder, you will already find them. I guess week 8 content has already been released. The Celery related things are also there. I would also upload the screencast code for week 8 right after this session, and you can refer to the folder structure that is given there or is being used for that screencast. If needed, I will also upload this application to some repository on GitLab or GitHub, and I'll share the link afterwards. So yes, please do let me know in case anyone has any questions.
Yes, sir. May I?
Yes.
Yes, sir. So I am working on a Bloglight app, just like everyone, and I have a doubt. Like, for example, I need to render so many posts at the dashboard of a user, right? So how can I do it in case of SPA? Like, do I need to create an API first?
Yeah, of course, API is definitely required because you of course need a backend here, right?
Yes. So
where do you get all those posts from the backend?
If I have an SQLite database, can I do it somehow without API?
See, what do you understand by an API? API is something that is just getting you the data that you need.
Yeah, right.
So if you are able to get that data even with your Flask routes, I am okay with that.
But in that case, the the request will be sent to the server, not like in SPA, like not in the background, right?
Why?
If I'll not use the API, if I'll not use the fetch function like that.
No, why you don't want to use fetch? Well, that's the whole purpose of using fetch, right? You want to make asynchronous requests. That is what is required here in this project.
Yeah.
You have to use some JavaScript function, be it fetch, be it Axios or something, in order to make the calls to the backend. Else, you won't be able to do this project.
Yeah, that is right, sir. My only doubt is that do I really need to create an API, or I can go with other things also, other options also?
What are the other options?
Just like you said, maybe some async functions. I'm not sure yet about it.
No, even if you are creating async functions in your front end, in your Vue components, ultimately they are going to interact with your API. They are going to interact with the backend. So there should be something at the backend, right, which is going to get you the data that you need.
Okay. Actually, while I worked for my Mad1 project, I created the APIs for CRUD on users and post.
Okay.
But I haven't created the APIs to like a post or comment or get them in that order that is required.
It's okay, that you can add now. You can just add those things on top of what you have.
Yeah, right, sir.
But API is, of course, it is absolutely required. Else, I don't know what other way one can create this application.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Does anyone has any other questions?
Yes, sir. I actually have one question. Please go ahead.
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
Oh, so just a couple of questions. One is in terms of if you were to use Vuex store and all that, right? So one approach that I'm kind of at least playing around with is where I have these blog posts and user details and all that loaded up to the store at the time of mounting of the application itself, mounting of the pages. And then you try to manipulate it every time. So there is an add of a blog or delete of a blog. There is something that happens on the server side, and then these local stores also get updated. So that kind of a model I'm kind of just toying around. I'm not really sure about how to approach it fully. But one question I've always been having
Vuex
is
for this purpose is a good idea. To me, does not.
Okay, but then basically Vuex store allows you access. All the components can basically access that single
correct.
data.
So it's like a single source of truth.
Right. So irrespective of what component I'm accessing from, I can just simply refer to one data store, right? Instead of sending the data to each component and then getting it back from the component and sending it to the server. I mean, I just thought store made a more logical. I mean, it's just my thinking that store made it easier. I thought the components.
See, I have not understood your entire implementation design in detail. So if you find using Vuex store, helpful as per your implementation, I would suggest you go ahead with it. From the first, explanation that you just gave here, I could not really completely understand it, but to me, using Vuex for this purpose was probably not making sense. But still, in detail what you are going to implement. So if you find it useful, you go ahead. There is no issue.
Okay, so one thing I had is that there is this issue of managing the state, right? The store also has to be kept in sync with what is there, whatever update we do to the backend server, right? At the end of the day. Otherwise, if I lose connection to the server, then I can still continue to act on my JS front end on the browser, but then none of that will get reflected in the backend, right? So that's a risk that's always there with the store, right?
Exactly. No,
right,
sorry.
okay.
If that is already there in the store, then the content can still get rendered on the screen even if you lost your connection to the backend.
Correct, but if I were to do any update, then I shouldn't do some update to the store and not in the backend, and then the whole thing will just go for
yes, that is limiting. That is not correct. Yeah, correct.
Okay. So that's one risk that I always have with this. If I take this approach.
So see, if you're using Vuex, you refresh the page and your view or your store is going to be fleshed out, right? So you have to keep this thing in your mind.
It will get reloaded. I mean, unless I have some kind of mounted that updates the stores, right? Like a mounted event or created. Yeah, it will be flushed out, and I have to have a reload in that case.
Yes.
Reload of all the data.
Correct.
Right. So that's the okay. If it's purely component interaction, then it's a little easier that way. Except that my only problem was I have to keep passing around data from parent to child, child to parent, and all that. I was just thinking, is there an alternative? Okay, so that's one question I had. The other question, maybe we didn't touch much, is right now I'm just completely working on Windows. So what does it take to transfer it to WSL Linux? Because I think that's where we'll have to eventually demonstrate the application and all that, right?
I think so, right? You can even access the same drive that I'm using your WSL. No one is preventing you from doing that. I can even open my WSL and navigate to the same location and then start this Flask application from my WSL. That is completely fine.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But the path address and all won't change, is it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, if you can, is it possible to show? Yeah. Because that's one thing that's also concerning me, that, you know, if you have to migrate all the application.
So you see that this is what the current path is, a long path, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, this slash changing has to happen, right?
Yes,
Even
of course.
internally, if I'm referring to URLs and all that.
No, then that is not required.
Okay.
So now I am here, and if I run python app.py file, I hope I have already closed that here. It is running. Let me close it first. Okay. See, my application is loaded up. I'll again be able to access it. It's working fine.
Okay. But wherever I'm using path, like for APIs, or say I'm accessing a photo from a local drive, or and so on, I have to be careful about the slashes, right? That's the only change.
No, I did not get it. Can you please explain it once again?
Like, for example, if I'm getting a profile picture, or you know, user profile picture, or some blog picture, or something like that, which I store in a local drive, right? I'm not storing it in a database. I'm storing it in a local drive.
So you are going to
And
keep
when I'm
it in your
running
static
the-
folder, right? In the Flask
Correct,
application
that's correct.
static folder. So
Right.
I would not suggest you to, you know, use it via the actual file path that I was suggesting probably in the beginning of this session. You use the static endpoint. Right? Whatever is there in the static folder, that is directly accessible to you in your Flask application. So for example, I just showed you this. Right?
Right.
I had a JS folder inside my static folder. I had one router.js file, and I'm able to access this. The same thing does not happen for, say, templates folder or any other folder that you have in your Flask application. Right? It is you know, only possible for static. So you keep all of your assets there in the static folder, and you use your URL for function or this static endpoint in order to refer to those files.
Okay, instead
don't
of
really
you
need
know,
to worry
actually
about
putting
these
the
things.
direct path.
Sorry?
Okay, okay. So instead of using the direct path, you're saying use URL for, so that you don't have to
Yeah, of
worry about
course.
slashes and all that.
You don't need to worry about this file structure, all of these things. Then later, let's say you decide to, you know, change your structure in a certain different way, then you will have to change your code at certain places or many other places too.
Right. Okay. Okay. And similarly for API calls, can I use URL for, so like if I have API calls that I have to make, you know, to specific endpoints, that also, how do I generically keep it? I mean, how do I store? Do I put it in URL for? I'm a little not sure about how to
If
do
you
that.
have to make a request to an API, I don't know how URL for is going to help you.
So how do I call? Do I have to put this address itself? Is it the full address, like 127.0.1?
Yeah, that is fine. See, I have started this application on my WSL, but I'm able to access it on my Windows browser.
Right. Okay.
You just access it the same way that you know, you would do it on a Windows machine. No problem.
Okay. 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 So then, okay, the migration is easier. Okay, sir. I think those are the two main questions I have. Thank you.
So what's the next one? I guess it was.
Yes, sir. I had one.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Actually, I was having some issue with my application. So essentially, what I'm doing is once the user logs in, they are directed to, you know, the normal URL / their user ID, right?
Okay.
And I've put the path for like my home component as the same, you know, / with the user ID variable, and within the home component, I'm making a fetch request to, you know, my API to get the information using this user ID.
Okay.
But there is some issue going on there. I think the fetch request is not going through. So what I wanted to ask is, how do I get the, you know, the variable from the URL into the component. So you had mentioned this dot route dot params, right? Is that how we get?
Yeah, so if there is a variable that is present in the URL, there are two ways through which you can get access to it inside your component definition. Let me come to one of those components. One is, I already showed you this dot route. This is how we are using it in the course component here. The other way is that when you are creating the component here, or when you are configuring that component here, you add this another argument to that object. You add props true, and then after that you also accept a props variable here, or a props, yeah, props variable here, and you define what all props values.
Sir, you're not sharing your screen.
Okay, again, I have again closed it. I'll keep it shared now. Yeah, so like you see that I am having this as a dynamic parameter in my as part of my URL.
Yeah.
The way I'm using it or accessing this value inside my component definition is this dot route variable dot params, and then I can access any other key that I have defined, or whatever the key that exists in my URL. The other way is inside the configuration itself, when you are defining this in the routers array, you add an attribute, say props true, and then you create another object here as part of your component definition that is going to define the list of props that this component will get. And here you will define ID. Now you don't need to use this long syntax here. What you can instead use is you can just use this dot ID. Of course, you will have to put it inside these curly braces. These are the two ways.
Okay, got it. Yeah, this is the only question I had. I also wanted to ask like where we can find this recording once we are done with this meeting.
I'll share it afterwards.
All
I'll
right.
put it on Discourse.
All right, thank you.
So in case of any issues, if you're not able to understand how do you get comfortable with the view constructs, so you can just go to the documentation. You will be able to find every possible information there. For example, the question that you were asking there, how do you pass props to your route component? So this is a article here. This is going to tell you about all possible ways. So this is the first thing. You are able to access it using the route variable, and you can decouple it by using or by passing those data variables as props. So documentation is a good thing too. You can also refer to that in case you are facing any issues understanding the constructs of the framework. Yeah. So the next question, Satyam.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I have a doubt regarding the export option. Sir, in export, while we are exporting the CSV, do we have to define an async function in the front end and make an API call? Then we will get a JSON in response and then generate the CSV in the front end, or do we have to send the CSV from backend?
See, it is expected to be a batch job. So that means that has to be taken care of from the backend using Salary.
Oh. So, sir, that means I should use salary for salary, and when
See,
and
what you
generate
have
the
is you
CSV file.
keep a button on the front end. As soon as the
Yes, sir.
user clicks on that button, it sends a request to a given API endpoint, and that API endpoint should trigger a Salary task in return.
Okay. Yes, sir. And then that task should send the CSV report.
Yes.
Okay. And sir, one more question.
Hmm.
Sir, can we, sir, in this project, we are going to use Redis for caching. So can we add cache to the endpoints directly, or we have to define the functions for interacting with the database, like for interacting with SQLite database separately?
I did not get it. Sorry.
So, for example, I have defined a class in Flask successful like user class.
Okay.
So can I add the caching to the function of get and post above get and post function?
Yeah, definitely you can do that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, sir. That's all.
Okay. All right. So I guess There was someone else who was asking a question that time. Salim, were you asking a question that time?
No, sir. It's
Okay.
okay. Sir, like mine was a very basic question. Like, what resources would you suggest, like for, uh, like small things? Like I get a lot of errors, and because I am not like in
See,
used to
errors are
this,
something that you will
I
definitely get while
it
development. Even
becomes
you see that when I was creating this application, I was also getting a lot of errors. Right? So you must learn how
yeah,
to
but
resolve those errors instead of. Sorry, are you saying something?
no, but like you knew what those errors meant, right? So, but
Yeah, it's okay. That
my
will come
case
with
is
practice. That will come with practice, right?
okay.
Right. So the main thing that you can refer to while learning resources is the documentation, the official documentation. Like I just
Okay.
suggested, if you want to understand how you pass props to the components in your view, you just go to this page. This is going to tell you everything or whatever possible ways that exist. And if you're getting an error and you are not able to get a solution for it over the documentation, then of course you can browse it. You will be able to get something on the Stack Overflow or some other community forums,
Okay.
or even put it on Discourse. So of course there are a lot of people out there who could help you.
Okay.
Uh, yes, Palash.
Good evening, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi. So, thank you, first of all, for uh, going through all this, clearing all our doubts. My doubt is actually a little bit different because I was hoping and I was wondering if we could use Vue 3 instead of Vue 2 in our
Yeah, yeah, sure,
MAD
sure.
2
Go ahead.
project. And okay, thank you. That clears a lot of stuff. And the next doubt is for the in-app store. Could I use Pinia instead of Vuex? Is Vuex required to be used?
Yes. No. So one thing is, if you are using store management for this project, then you must use
Yeah.
Vuex.
Okay.
Of course,
Okay.
it's not a mandation for you to use a store management
Right.
thing, but if you're using it, you must use Vuex.
Okay. 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 Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Uh, yes, Satyam.
Sir, can you suggest some resources to for how to export an CSV file from the backend? Because I am quite new to that, sir.
So may I know how do you want to exactly export it?
So as you have suggested, I will trigger a salary batch job,
Mhm.
and when that job is completed, salary will inform that function and will send a CSV file that I have generated in
See, there
response.
are multiple ways through which you can achieve it. One thing is that as soon as the user clicks on the export button, you trigger a salary job. As soon as the job is completed, you send the updated CSV file or the generated CSV file to the user via email. If you want the file to be downloaded to the user's machine, what you can do is you send that, or yeah, you the user clicks on the button, you start a salary job. After that, in your front end itself, you, let's say, create a set interval function, and let's say after every 2 or 3 seconds you make an API call to check whether the salary task that you triggered is still processing or it has finished its execution, or the state has changed to success. If it has changed to success, then you directly download that particular file from the front end into the user's machine. There might be many other mechanisms possible here, so that depends on what your preference is.
Okay, sir. So I can also directly send that CSV file as a mail to the user,
Yes.
and can also send an alert to the user once the mail has been sent.
Yeah, sure, that is
Okay.
fine too. But how will you send that alert?
So for that also I have to use the method for set interval. I have to check frequently whether the task has been completed or not.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. I got it. Thank you.
Yes, Mahi.
Sir, I just want to ask, in the Madman project, our judging criteria was our users, processes, and all those backend things. In this Mat2, judging criteria was designing or what?
I'm still trying to figure out what your exact question is. I could not really understand it well. So I guess you were asking something about the evaluation criteria. So see, the evaluation criteria is almost going to remain the same as you would have observed in the AppDev1 project. Of course, there are a lot of additions to this application development tool course in comparison to what you would have done for AppDev1. So this time the evaluation is going to become more difficult. This is what all I can say. Okay. I'm not sure, Mahi, if you are able to hear me.
Yes, sir. It's okay. It's clear.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay. So I'm assuming that there are no more questions right now. I hope you understood what I wanted to demonstrate today, and I hope it will help you getting started with your project in case you haven't. All right. So yeah. So this project support session, of course, will be continued till the end of this course. So you can come to this session on any Monday and get your queries clarified. You can also post them on Discord in case you basically want a speedy response. Fine. So thank you all. Thank you for coming into this session. I hope you took the advantage of it. All right. I wish you all the best and have a good day.